Day of the Dead is one of the best zombie movies I've seen. It's a movie that displays Romero at his absolute best, giving us great practical effects, hordes of unique flesh-eating zombies, and a story that is absolutely captivating. The cast of characters are all incredibly realistic, giving us a viewpoint of survivors who are slowly succumbing to the stress that surviving requires. It's probably the least known of the Night, Dawn, Day trilogy, but it may be my favorite movie between the three. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's watch Day of the Dead. The movie opens with Dr. Sarah Bowman and her team searching a city in Florida for survivors. They call out, offering sanctuary to anyone who hears them, but the radio only receives static as a reply, and when they shout out with a bullhorn, all that greet them is a horde of the undead. The crew head home to their small group of the living who have made their home in an underground bunker adjacent to a mine. Tensions are high as every one of the survivors are stressed and forced to work days on end, and Private Salazar is showing signs that he's ready to crack.
You're collapsing from stress. Now let me help.
Stress? We're all collapsing. This whole f***ing unit is collapsing, everybody except you.
When the helicopter crew gets back, the pilot John and Bill, the electronics expert, head to their quarters to relax, but Bowman and Salazar are met with Privates Steele and Rickles, who inform them that one of the doctors needs 2 new specimens and they need help to acquire them.
Can't you get anyone else?
There isn't anyone else. We're it.
They drive deep into a mine to a fenced-off area with a funneling gate. When they shout out to the zombies, they stumble forward but much slower than they have in the past, leading Bowman to theorize that they might be afraid and therefore could be showing signs of learning. As they go through their process of wrangling the undead, the theme of this movie quickly becomes apparent. The soldiers are somewhat unhinged, shouting and laughing, while Salazar is on the verge of collapse. Pretty much everything that can go wrong does, as the zombie slips from Salazar's grip and nearly takes a bite out of Rickles, only to be stopped when Bowman takes the pole and pulls the zombie's attention away. This then causes Steele to grab Salazar and dangle him over their second specimen, getting him far too close to its hungry jaws, and he only releases Salazar when Bowman threatens to gun him down. So the theme is the overabundance of stress within the survivors. Each of them are forced to live basically on top of each other in this underground prison. Every day their threads of sanity wind a little tighter as the dead slam at their gate and threaten to end their lives, and it's clear that those threads are dangerously close to snapping. To add to the disintegrating situation, the former commander just died, leaving Captain Rhodes as the new commanding officer. Rhodes is confrontational.
I want to know if you're doing something that's going to help us out of this deep we're in. Or if you're all in there just jerking each other off.
This has caused a rift to begin growing between the soldiers and the medical staff. The soldiers see the doctors as a liability that their men keep dying for, yet all of their testing has yielded no results, while the doctors see their work as the only way for humanity to continue in this new world filled with the undead. The main doctor in charge is Dr. Logan, and while everyone else is crumbling around him, he seems to be thriving with this new world of scientific discovery. He's gone full-on Frankenstein, studying the zombies' brains, and has determined that there could be a way to domesticate the undead by manipulating their core animal instincts. In a debrief, Bowman storms off only to be ordered to sit back down with the threat of being shot. Rhodes informs her that now that he's in command, the bunker is under military law, and he will not tolerate insubordination.
And I want to know what the f*** you're doing with my time!
Dr. Logan reveals his theories and the slight progress that he's made. He's able to force Rhodes to see that there are no real options other than to allow the medical team the time and resources that they need to continue their work. Rhodes isn't happy, but with no other choice, he agrees to keep the peace for now, but warns that he'll be keeping a close eye on their operations, and any attempt to undermine his command will be punished with death. In the night, Bowman is woken by nightmare after nightmare and decides to walk around the facility since she can't sleep. She meets with Bill, who offers her a drink and takes her back to the quarters that he and John share. Together, they drink and talk and let off a little bit of steam.
It takes more energy to keep quiet than it does to speak the mind. Go ahead. Let go of what you got now.
Fine. I don't like the way I look. I've got too much hair, my boobs are too low, my butt is too big.
John absolutely wins my heart in this scene. He gives a monologue about the futility of life and humanity's search for meaning in a world where most things have become meaningless. He touches on the ideals of God and religion and how this apocalyptic disaster could just be God's way of showing humanity that they aren't in charge of life. It's really beautiful and helps Bowman feel centered, even if it's just for this night. The next day, Dr. Logan begins his testing on positive affirmation to domesticate the undead.
That wasn't very nice, you know. That wasn't very nice at all.
He's got a zombie that he's named Bub, who has helped to show that his theory has merit. He places items in front of Bub, and Bub picks them up, seeming to recognize them from his time when he was alive. As he's distracted with a book, Dr. Logan enters and Bub stays docile, seemingly wrapped in his memory of reading to the point where his hunger is somehow satiated. When he's given a phone, Bub nearly speaks, and when he sees Captain Rhodes enter the lab, he stands and salutes. Rhodes doesn't return Bub's salute, so when Dr. Logan gives him an empty pistol, Bub raises the firearm at Rhodes and would have shot him if the gun had any bullets. This small progress seems to relieve a tiny amount of stress in the base, but that doesn't last long. While gathering more specimens, one zombie's skin rips, allowing it to break free from its confines. It grabs a soldier and bites into his neck, causing him to shoot, which kills another soldier. Salazar freaks out and attacks another specimen and gets his arm bit. He runs through the facility until Bowman catches up and knocks him out, right outside of John and Bill's quarters. She thinks quickly and chops his arm off and cauterizes the stump, but the other soldiers aren't far behind. They blame Salazar for the other soldiers' deaths, and everyone raises their guns at each other to determine Salazar's fate.
I got the infection in time.
That's bull, lady. I've seen 1,000 of them. He's gonna die.
Not wanting to kill his only helicopter pilot or electronics expert, Rhodes allows them to keep Salazar alive if he stays with John and Bill. He also says that the soldiers will no longer be providing the other crew with supplies, including food, so from now on, they're all on their own. Bowman and Bill head back to the lab for some morphine and other supplies. While there, they find a recording from Dr. Logan speaking to himself and chastising himself as if his mother were in the room with him. He's clearly losing his mind, and they find the head of one of the recently killed soldiers, zombified but still moving around despite its decapitated state. They leave, but hear Dr. Logan speaking to Bub, so they head inside to observe. Logan has given Bub some headphones, and the zombified man enjoys the music so much that even when he grabs the doctor, he doesn't bite or attack him whatsoever. Dr. Logan teaches Bub how to play and stop the music.
Now it's time for your reward.
He gives Bub a bucket full of meat, shocking Bill and Bowman. Rhodes enters just then and forces the doctor to tell him what's in the bucket. Logan reveals that he's rewarded Bub with meat from the recently deceased soldiers, and Rhodes doesn't take this news well. Rhodes then takes the guns from all of the medical staff and Bill. The soldiers take the medics out of the facility and threaten to kill them unless John gives up his weapons as well and agrees to fly the soldiers out of the facility, but since the helicopter can't hold all of them, that means that Bill and Bowman would have to be left behind.
You'll never get me to do that, Rhodes.
Rhodes shoves Bill and Bowman into the funneled gate and ties it open, leaving them to be eaten by the zombies. Rhodes doesn't listen to John, and Bill and Bowman decide that they have to run before the zombies get too close and tear them apart. The soldiers then start to beat John into submission, but they stop when they hear the elevator and we see Salazar is taking it to the surface. We also see Bub here munching on some meat when he discovers the bolt on his chain. He unscrews it and the chain falls to the floor. He wanders around the facility until he sees the dead body of Dr. Logan, and he ends up crying while thrashing his chain around. He sees some discarded pistols on the floor, and then we cut away. Bill and Bowman are doing their best to fight off the undead using a shovel and a plank of wood as their weapons, and it's working quite well. John is also able to blindside Rhodes while the other soldiers are investigating the elevator. He knocks him out and takes his pistols. He then runs into the infected area in search for his friends. We see Salazar up on the surface as he unchains the gates and lets in a flood of the undead. He lays down on the elevator while they swarm him, and when dozens are on the platform, he lowers the elevator into the underground facility. John also left the funnel gate open, so now the soldiers have zombies coming at them from both sides. The soldiers don't stand a chance as they're swarmed. They get torn apart one by one, with my favorite being with this dude as he's screaming, only for his voice to get higher and higher pitched as his vocal cords are torn and stretched. John finally reunites with Bill and Bowman, just as a small horde has found them. He gives them each a gun, and they shred the undead. They find the abandoned entrance to the bunker, and begin the long climb to the surface. Rhodes was able to make it into the armory, but before he can get his weapon loaded, Bub rounds the corner. He shoots, hitting Rhodes in the back and causing him to drop all of his ammo. Rhodes tries to run, but he's met with nothing but locked doors and zombies, and eventually, Bub puts a bullet in his chest. As the bunker has become a feeding frenzy for the undead, we cut to some time later with Bowman, Bill, and John, all sitting on a tropical island, finally getting some rest and relaxation. And that is where this movie ends. I think Day of the Dead is beautiful and captivating. Every aspect of the human element, from the hierarchy of the military to the doctors reteaching the undead about their own humanity, is well thought out and interesting to explore. Obviously, Rhodes is the main antagonist, and all of the soldiers display attributes of racism and bigotry, but every other character in the bunker also displays antagonizing moments. They were able to capture the disdain that grows when people are forced to live in a confined space, the stress and feeling of captivity and claustrophobia that would occur in a situation like this, all culminating and increasing with the knowledge that any day a horde of the undead could crash through their gates and end the existence that they've all been fighting so hard to hold on to. The knowledge that each of these survivors are incredibly flawed and falling apart as the days go on forced us to think on our own humanity and morals that would be tested in an extreme survival situation like this. Like I said, Rhodes is clearly the big bad guy, but at the same time, he's obviously driven by a fear of losing more of the men that he's sworn to protect. Dr. Logan is trying to find a way to domesticate the zombies, but he's losing himself in his experimentation, and we have to question if feeding pieces of the deceased to the undead is too far, or if it's an uncomfortable necessity that could allow humanity to regain its foothold. Dr. Bowman is fighting for what she believes is right and essential, but her arguments force her to be confrontational in the face of a new and unhinged leadership. So maybe if she took a more compromising stance, things could have gone differently, and so many of the now dead survivors could have worked together for a little bit longer. But at the same time, maybe not. As humans, we're all flawed, and as stress puts pressure on us, it forces us to bend until eventually we break. And that's what happens in Day of the Dead. The characters break one by one, and it leads to only a fraction of their numbers making it out alive. It's beautifully done, and of course punctuated with amazing practical effect work, so without a doubt, I'm giving this a 5 out of 5. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on the next movie that we cover. And a huge thanks to my YouTube members. Thank you guys so much for the extra support. It really helps me while I'm making these videos. But I've said all I can about Day of the Dead. It's a great movie. You should definitely go watch it. And I will see you guys on the next video. Bye-bye!